The Galactic Combat Academy stood like a massive fortress among the stars. Ships from hundreds of different worlds came and went every day, bringing new students who wanted to learn how to fight and protect the galaxy. The academy was old, built over 300 years ago, and it had trained some of the best warriors in known space. Commander Rektal walked into the training hall on a bright morning. He was a Zenthari, which meant he had 4 eyes, gray skin that looked almost like stone, and arms that were longer than a human's. He had been teaching at the academy for 40 years. He had seen thousands of students come through his classes. Some were good. Some were great. Most were just okay. Today was the first day of a new term. Rektal looked at the group of new students standing in front of him. There were tall Krenth warriors with thick armor covering their bodies. There were fast Vexari hunters with long tails and sharp claws. There were insect-like Chithra with multiple arms. And there were 3 humans. Humans were new to the galaxy. Only 2 years ago, Earth had made contact with the rest of the civilized worlds. Before that, nobody knew humans existed. Now everywhere Rektal looked, there seemed to be humans. They were curious, friendly, and always asking questions. 2 of the humans in his class fit that description perfectly. Jake Morrison was a tall young man with brown hair who smiled a lot. He had already introduced himself to half the class before the lesson even started. Chris Bailey was shorter with red hair, and he was busy making friends with a group of Vexari students, showing them pictures of Earth on his datapad. The 3rd human was different. Her name was Maya Grant. She stood in the back of the group, away from the others. She had dark hair pulled back tight, green eyes that seemed to watch everything, and a face that showed no emotion at all. She wore her uniform perfectly. Her boots were clean. Her posture was straight, but she had not said a single word to anyone. Rektal had read her file before class. She had scored high on all her entrance tests. Her physical fitness scores were excellent. Her written work showed she was smart and thoughtful. But there was a note from the academy counselor that said Maya had not spoken during her intake interview. She had only nodded or shaken her head to answer questions. 3 weeks had passed since the term started. Maya still had not spoken. Not in class. Not in the dining hall. Not in the barracks where she lived with other students. Some of the instructors were worried about her. They thought maybe she was sick or scared or not fit to be a soldier. Rektal was not worried. He was interested. He had learned over his long career that the quietest students were often the most dangerous. The ones who watched and listened learned more than the ones who talked all the time, and Maya Grant watched everything. Her green eyes followed every movement in the classroom. When Rektal demonstrated a fighting technique, she studied it with complete focus. When other students practiced, she observed them carefully. She was always learning, always analyzing, always thinking. Today, Rektal was going to start teaching close combat. This was fighting without weapons, just body against body. It was one of the most important skills a soldier could learn. In space, things went wrong. Ships got boarded by enemies. Crashes happened on hostile planets. Sometimes your gun stopped working and all you had were your hands. Rektal stood in the center of the training mat and called for attention. The students gathered around him in a circle. Maya stood at the back, but Rektal noticed her eyes were locked on him. "Today we begin close combat training," Rektal said. His voice came out as clicks and whistles, but the translator device everyone wore changed it into words they could understand. "This is not a game. This is not sport fighting. This is about survival. When you are in real danger, your body is your weapon." He gestured to one of the Krenth students to join him on the mat. The Krenth's name was Gorth. He was huge, maybe 8 feet tall, with thick plates of natural armor covering his body. He looked like he could break a person in half without trying hard. "I will show you the Krenth grappling method," Rektal continued. "It has been the standard fighting style for coalition forces for 200 years. It works no matter what kind of body you have. It uses leverage and joint control. Size and strength matter less than technique." Rektal spent the next 20 minutes showing the class different moves: how to grab an opponent, how to throw them down, how to lock their joints so they could not move, how to choke them until they passed out. Gorth helped him demonstrate, letting Rektal throw him around and lock him up over and over. The students watched closely. Some looked excited. Some looked nervous. Maya's face showed nothing, but her eyes never left Rektal's hands. "Now you will practice," Rektal said. "Find a partner. I will walk around and help you." The students began to pair up. The Krenth went with other Krenth because they were used to fighting each other. The Vexari grouped together. The Chithra found partners with similar body types. Jake Morrison and Chris Bailey paired up, both of them laughing nervously as they tried to remember the moves they had just seen. Maya stood alone. Rektal walked over to her. "Cadet Grant, you need a partner?" She looked up at him with those calm green eyes and nodded once. "Partner with Cadet Gorth," Rektal said, pointing to the big Krenth who had helped with the demonstration. For just a moment, something changed in Maya's expression. It was not fear. It was not worry. It was interest. Like she had been hoping for exactly this. Gorth walked over. He was more than twice Maya's size. His lower chest was at the same height as the top of her head. Some of the other students laughed. One of the Krenth made a joke about Gorth being careful not to break the small human. Maya did not react to the laughter. She just looked up at Gorth and waited. Gorth was a good student and a kind person. He moved slowly when they started practicing, giving Maya time to learn each move. His armored body made it hard for her small hands to get a good grip, but she adapted quickly. She found the gaps between his armor plates. She adjusted how she stood to get better leverage. She learned fast. What impressed Rektal most was that she did not just copy the moves exactly as shown. She made small changes. She tested different grips. She tried varying her positioning slightly. She was experimenting, learning not just how to do the techniques, but why they worked. Gorth asked her questions as they practiced. "Do you understand this move? Should I slow down? Is this too rough?" Maya never spoke, but she nodded or shook her head to answer him. After a while, Gorth stopped asking questions. They just practiced in silence. Rektal watched from across the room while helping other students. He noticed that Maya's movements got more precise with every repetition. She only needed to see something once or twice before she could do it almost perfectly. Her body control was exceptional. Her balance was excellent. Her timing was sharp. But more than that, Rektal saw something else. Maya was not just learning the techniques. She was studying Gorth. She was finding his weaknesses. Every time they practiced a move, she was gathering information about how he moved, how he reacted, where his defenses were strong and where they were weak. She was thinking like a hunter studying prey. The class continued for another hour. By the end, most students were tired and sore. They had been thrown down and choked and twisted into uncomfortable positions. Some were complaining. Some were laughing about their mistakes. Some were already talking about how sore they would be tomorrow. Maya looked like she could train for another 3 hours. She was not breathing hard. She showed no signs of pain or tiredness. She just stood quietly waiting for whatever came next. Rektal dismissed the class. The students filed out of the training hall in groups, talking and joking with each other. Jake and Chris tried to include Maya in their conversation, but she just walked silently beside them until they gave up and talked to each other instead. Rektal stayed behind, thinking about what he had seen. Maya Grant was unusual. Her silence was strange, yes, but it was more than that. She had a quality that reminded him of predators he had seen on other worlds. Patient, watchful, waiting for the right moment. He pulled up her file again on his data pad and read through it more carefully. Maya had grown up on Earth in a place called North America. She had trained in something called mixed martial arts since she was 8 years old. She had competed in tournaments. She had won championships. Before joining the academy, she had worked as a security contractor, which meant she got paid to protect people and sometimes fight dangerous criminals. She was not some innocent student learning to fight for the first time. She already knew how to fight. She knew how to hurt people. She had done it before, so why was she here? And why was she pretending to be just another student? Rektal closed the file. He would watch Maya Grant carefully. Something was happening here. Something interesting. He did not know what she was planning, but he was certain she was planning something. The quiet ones always were. The weeks went by slowly at the Galactic Combat Academy. Every day followed the same pattern. Morning physical training. Classroom lessons about tactics and strategy. Afternoon combat practice. Evening study time. Then sleep and wake up to do it all again. Most students fell into comfortable routines. They made friends. They formed study groups. They spent their free time in the recreation areas, playing games or watching entertainment from different worlds. The academy encouraged this, and soldiers needed to bond with each other. They needed to learn to work as teams. Jake Morrison and Chris Bailey became popular quickly. They were friendly and easy to talk to. Jake joined a zero-gravity sports team with some Vexari students. Chris started a music appreciation club where students shared songs from their home worlds. They were normal, social, and well-liked. Maya Grant remained apart from everyone. She ate her meals alone, always sitting at a corner table where she could see the entire dining hall. She trained alone during free time, using the gym when it was almost empty. She never joined any clubs or social groups. She never went to any of the parties that students threw in the barracks. She just followed the schedule, completed her work, and stayed silent. Other students stopped trying to talk to her after the first 2 weeks. It was too uncomfortable. She would just look at them with those calm green eyes and say nothing. Some thought she was rude. Some thought she was strange. Some thought she was broken somehow, damaged by something that happened before she came to the academy. None of them understood what she was really doing. Commander Rektal understood. He had been watching Maya carefully for 5 weeks now, and he saw patterns that others missed. She was not avoiding people because she was shy or scared or damaged. She was studying them. Every time she sat alone in the dining hall, she was watching how students from different species interacted. Every time she trained alone, she was observing how the other students who were there moved and fought. Every time she stayed silent, she was listening and learning. She was gathering information, building knowledge, preparing for something. In combat class, Maya continued to perform at an average level. She won about half her sparring matches and lost the other half. Her technique was good but not exceptional. Her scores put her right in the middle of the class rankings. She never stood out as particularly strong or particularly weak. She was just there, doing the work, getting acceptable results. But Rektal noticed things that others did not. He saw that Maya won against different types of opponents in a perfectly distributed pattern. She beat Krenth students sometimes, Vexari students sometimes, Chithra students sometimes. She also lost to each type sometimes. It was almost mathematical how evenly her wins and losses were spread out. Nobody was that consistent by accident. She was controlling her performance deliberately. He also noticed that Maya had started copying some of his personal fighting habits, small things that he did without thinking. The way he shifted his weight before throwing a certain type of punch. The way he turned his shoulder when defending against kicks. The way he breathed during grappling exchanges. These were not things he taught directly. They were just habits he had developed over 40 years of fighting. Maya was studying him specifically, learning his patterns, building a mental picture of how he fought. In the 5th week, Rektal decided to test his theory about Maya. During combat class, he made an announcement that got everyone's attention. "Today we will have demonstration matches," he said. "I will fight volunteers from the class. This will help you understand the difference between student level and master level. You will see techniques you have learned being used at a much higher skill level." Hands shot up immediately. Gorth volunteered first, eager as always to test himself. Rektal accepted, and they moved to the center mat. The whole class formed a circle around them to watch. The match was short. Gorth was big and strong and skilled, but Rektal had 4 decades more experience. He moved with efficiency that Gorth could not match. Every movement had a purpose. Every technique flowed into the next one smoothly. Within 90 seconds, Gorth was on his back with his arm trapped in a lock that would break bones if Rektal applied more pressure. Rektal helped Gorth up and explained what had happened. "Size and strength are good, but experience is better. Cadet Gorth fights well. In a few years he might be my equal. But today I know too much that he does not know yet." 3 more students volunteered over the next 20 minutes. A Vexari who was incredibly fast. A Chithra whose multiple arms seemed like an impossible advantage. A Dracor whose crystal body was like natural armor. Rektal defeated all of them with calm precision. Each match was a lesson. Each defeat showed the students how much they still had to learn. "Anyone else?" Rektal asked, looking around the circle. His 4 eyes moved across the students and landed on the humans. Jake and Chris both looked like they wanted to try, but were too intimidated by what they had just seen. Maya stood behind them, her face showing nothing. Her green eyes fixed on Rektal with that same intense focus he had noticed from the first day. "Cadet Grant," Rektal said clearly, "you have not volunteered." Every student turned to look at Maya. She did not react to suddenly becoming the center of attention. She did not look uncomfortable or nervous. She just looked at Rektal for a long moment, then shook her head once. A simple, clear no. "You do not wish to test yourself?" Rektal asked. Maya shook her head again. Jake leaned close to her and whispered, "Come on, Maya. It's just practice. Nobody expects you to win or anything." For the first time in 5 weeks, Maya Grant spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. It had an edge to it that made several nearby students take a step back without realizing why. "Not yet," she said. Those 2 words hung in the air. Not a refusal based on fear. Not a statement that she was not ready. Just not yet, implying that there would be a time. That she was still preparing. That she was waiting for something specific. Vrektal felt his breathing speed up slightly, a Zenthari reaction to recognizing danger. He had been right about Maya. She was not a normal student. She had a plan, and that plan involved him. "Very well," Vrektal said, keeping his voice calm and professional, "but understand that hesitation is also a choice. In real combat, you cannot always wait for the perfect moment." Maya said nothing, but something in her eyes suggested she disagreed. She thought waiting for the right moment was exactly what you should do. The class ended shortly after that. Students talked excitedly about the demonstration matches as they left. But they also talked about Maya, about her speaking for the first time, about what "not yet" meant, about why she was so strange and quiet. Vrektal went to his office after class and accessed the Academy database. He pulled up information about Earth and humans. He had read some of it before, but now he studied it carefully. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans came from a planet that was far more dangerous than most worlds in the galaxy. Earth had extreme weather. It had predators that hunted in packs. It had diseases and natural disasters. It had gone through multiple extinction events where most life died, but something always survived. The planet seemed designed to kill anything living on it, yet life had not just survived but thrived. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters. They could not run as fast as most prey animals. They could not climb as well. They were not as strong, but they could run forever. They would chase prey for hours, for days if necessary, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it. Humans could survive injuries that would kill most other species. They had incredible pain tolerance. They could lose large amounts of blood and keep fighting. They could function with broken bones. Their bodies seemed designed to keep going no matter what happened to them. Most disturbing of all, humans had spent most of their history fighting each other. They had been at war almost constantly for thousands of years. They had developed weapons of incredible destructive power. By the time they reached space, they had bombs powerful enough to destroy their entire planet. They had come dangerously close to using them multiple times. The Coalition's first contact with Earth had been cautious. The scout reports described humans as predators who view warfare as both science and art. The diplomats had approached Earth carefully, unsure if humans would be peaceful or aggressive. Humans had turned out to be friendly and cooperative. They joined the Coalition eagerly. They seemed excited to meet other intelligent species. They shared their technology and culture freely, but that did not mean they were not dangerous. Vrektal read about human psychology. Humans were social creatures. They formed strong bonds with their groups. They thrived on communication and connection. Isolation was considered a severe punishment in human culture. Being alone was something humans feared. So what did it mean that Maya Grant chose silence? That she separated herself from everyone? That she spent 5 weeks alone watching and waiting? Vrektal did not have complete answers, but he knew one thing with certainty. Maya Grant was waiting for something. And based on how she watched him, based on how she studied his fighting style, based on how she said "not yet" when offered a chance to fight him, Vrektal suspected he was what she was waiting for. 2 more weeks passed. The academy routine continued. The training hall erupted in chaos. Students were shouting, some in celebration, others in disbelief. The Krenth were making their deep, rumbling sounds that indicated approval. The Vexari were chattering rapidly in their high-pitched voices. The Chithra were clicking their mandibles in what might have been surprise or excitement. Jake Morrison and Chris Bailey were jumping up and down like children. They rushed toward Maya, their human instinct to celebrate with their pack overwhelming their usual academy discipline. Other human students from different classes who had come to watch were cheering loudly. Even Gorth, the massive Krenth who had been Maya's first practice partner, was nodding his great armored head with what looked like respect, but Maya herself remained calm. She stood on the mat, breathing slightly harder than normal but otherwise showing little reaction to what had just happened. She had proven something important. She had shown that she was not just another student. But she did not seem interested in celebrating that fact. Frektal raised one of his 4 hands for silence. Gradually, the noise died down. Hundreds of eyes turned to look at him, waiting to see what he would say next. However, Rektal said, his voice cutting through the remaining whispers, "I believe Cadet Grant's evaluation is not yet complete." The hall went silent again. Maya tilted her head slightly, curious about what was coming next. Cadet Grant has demonstrated that she can perform at a level far beyond what she has shown for the past 7 weeks, Rektal continued. Therefore, I am offering her an additional challenge. An optional challenge that will not affect her grade but will satisfy my professional curiosity. He stepped back onto the center mat, his posture straightening, his 4 eyes focusing completely on Maya. 5 minutes. Cadet Grant. No time limits on specific exchanges, no restrictions except basic safety rules. You fight at your true level, not the level you have been pretending to have, and I will do the same. The training hall fell so silent that the sound of the ventilation systems could be heard humming in the background. This was unprecedented. Instructors did not challenge students to real fights. Evaluations were structured and controlled. But Vrektal was offering something different, something dangerous. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Vrektal could almost see her thinking, calculating odds and outcomes. She had won the evaluation. She had proven her point. She could walk away now with her victory intact. But then she smiled. A full smile this time, not the small one from before. It made her look younger, more human, less like the predator she had appeared to be. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice clear and confident. She walked back onto the mat. This time her stance was completely different. Gone was the careful hybrid style. What replaced it was something uniquely human, a fighting position that spoke of thousands of years of human warfare and martial development. She looked relaxed, loose, but Rektal could see the coiled tension in her muscles, the predatory focus in her eyes. The crowd of students pressed closer, forming a tight circle around the mat. Nobody wanted to miss what was about to happen. Several instructors pushed through to the front, wanting a clear view. This was going to be talked about for years. "Begin," the timekeeper said, his voice uncertain. There was no circling this time, no careful testing. Maya attacked immediately, and the speed and intensity of her assault shocked everyone watching. She was not holding back anymore. She was not playing it safe or measuring her strikes. She was fighting the way humans had fought for thousands of years, with complete commitment and terrifying aggression. Rektal defended desperately. His 40 years of experience was the only thing keeping him from being overwhelmed in the first 30 seconds. Maya's strikes came from unexpected angles. Her combinations flowed in ways that violated the standard patterns taught at the academy. She was improvising, adapting, creating techniques on the fly in response to his defenses. This was what real human combat looked like, not the structured, teachable techniques that worked across multiple species. This was the chaotic, creative, endlessly adaptive fighting style that had made humans the most successful predators on their death world. Rektal managed to create some space. He used his longer reach to keep Maya at a distance where her speed advantage was reduced. They exchanged strikes, and Rektal noted with both pride and concern that Maya was holding her own against him, even when he was fighting seriously. She took a punch to the ribs that should have broken bones. She barely flinched. She took a kick to the thigh that should have dropped her to one knee. She absorbed it and kept coming. Her pain tolerance was extraordinary, just like the files had said about humans. 2 minutes passed. Both fighters were breathing hard now. Frektal's advantages in experience and physical power were being offset by Maya's superior endurance and her ability to take punishment. In a short fight, he would win. In a long fight, she would outlast him. This was exactly the nightmare scenario the Coalition had quietly feared when humanity joined. A species that could match other races in technology and intelligence, but surpassed all of them in sheer stubborn refusal to stop fighting. 3 minutes. Maya's attacks were not slowing. If anything, they were getting stronger. She was entering that state humans called a second wind, where their endurance physiology shifted into a higher gear. Vrektal, by contrast, was beginning to tire. His strikes were slower. His reactions were a fraction of a second delayed. Maya sensed the shift like a predator smelling weakness. She pressed her advantage, forcing him to defend constantly. to retreat, to expend energy just staying in the fight. Rektal knew he was in trouble. Real trouble. Not the kind of trouble where a student gets lucky and scores a point. The kind of trouble where he might actually lose. He drew on every bit of his experience. Every trick he had learned in 40 years. Every technique he had mastered. He fought with everything he had, not holding anything back, not trying to teach or demonstrate, just trying to survive. But Maya was relentless. She gave him no time to rest, no space to recover, no opportunity to use his advantages. She fought like a human, with endurance and adaptability and absolute determination. In a moment that felt like it happened in slow motion, Rektal threw a punch that was just slightly too slow. He overcommitted just slightly too much. It was a tiny mistake, the kind that would not matter against most opponents. But Maya was not most opponents. She slipped past his punch and closed to grappling range. She executed a throw that was pure human wrestling technique, using his momentum against him. Rektal hit the mat hard, and before he could recover, Maya had secured a dominant position. They grappled for control. Both of them used every technique they knew. Rektal's experience let him escape one submission attempt, then another. But Maya was relentless. She transitioned between techniques with smooth efficiency. She did not give him time to rest or recover. She did not give him space to use his advantages. She fought like a human, with endurance, adaptability, and absolute determination. 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the match, Maya secured an arm lock that Rektal could not escape without serious injury. He had perhaps 3 seconds to make a decision. Continue fighting and suffer a broken arm, or submit to a cadet in front of the entire academy. He tapped the mat twice. The signal for submission, Maya released immediately. She unwrapped herself from his arm and rolled away, creating distance. She got to her feet smoothly, breathing hard, her training clothes soaked with sweat. There was a bruise forming on her left cheek, where one of his strikes had landed cleanly. But she was smiling. Rektal got to his feet slowly. He tested his arm carefully to make sure it was not damaged. His body hurt in a dozen places. His pride hurt even more. The training hall was in chaos again, even louder than before. Cadets from multiple species were all talking at once, some in excitement, others in shock. He raised his hand for silence. Gradually, the noise died down. "Cadet Grant," he said formally, his voice carrying clearly despite the roughness from the earlier choke. "You have demonstrated combat proficiency, far exceeding normal cadet level. Effective immediately, you will be moved to the advanced combat track." Maya stood at attention. "Thank you, sir." Rektal stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. The other instructors were close enough to listen, but the students could not make out his words over the ambient noise. "You made me look foolish," he said quietly. "You waited 7 weeks to reveal your true capabilities. All so you could have this moment." Maya met his eyes. Her expression showed a hint of apology now. "Yes, sir. Why?" Rektal asked. "Why the deception? Why wait so long? You could have been training at the advanced level from the beginning. You could have been learning more, progressing faster. Instead, you spent 7 weeks pretending to be average. Why?" For a moment, Maya was quiet. Rektal thought she might retreat back into her earlier silence, but then she spoke, her voice soft but clear enough that the nearby instructors could hear. "On Earth we have a saying," she said. "Speak softly and carry a big stick. It means you should not boast about your strength. You should let others underestimate you until the moment you need to show what you can really do." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I wanted everyone to underestimate me, sir. I wanted to understand this academy, the teaching methods." The news spread through the Galactic Combat Academy like wildfire. Within hours, every student and instructor knew what had happened. Maya Grant, the silent human who had seemed so average, had defeated Commander Rektal in front of hundreds of witnesses. Not once, but twice. The reaction was mixed and intense. Some students were inspired. They saw Maya's victory as proof that careful observation and strategic thinking could overcome superior experience. They started paying more attention in class. They started studying their opponents more carefully. They started thinking about combat as something more than just physical technique. Other students were intimidated. They had been in class with Maya for 7 weeks and never realized how dangerous she was. If she could hide her abilities so completely, what did that say about their own awareness? What else were they missing? A few students were angry. They felt deceived. They thought Maya had been dishonest by not showing her true skill from the beginning. They muttered about how she had wasted everyone's time by forcing the instructors to teach at a basic level when she was already advanced. The instructors had their own debates. Some thought Maya's approach was brilliant. She had demonstrated exceptional strategic thinking and discipline. Others thought it was inappropriate. Students should be honest about their abilities so they could be placed at the correct training level from the start. Commander Vrektal listened to all the debates but said little. He had his own thoughts about Maya Grant, and they were complicated. On one hand, he was embarrassed. He had been beaten by a first-term cadet in front of the entire academy. His reputation as an unbeatable combat instructor was damaged. Some students now looked at him differently, with less respect or perhaps with too much sympathy. On the other hand, he was impressed. Maya had shown qualities that were rare even among experienced soldiers: patience, discipline, strategic thinking, the ability to sacrifice short-term advantages for long-term gains. These were the marks of a true warrior, not just a skilled fighter. What bothered Rektal most was not that Maya had beaten him. It was how thoroughly she had planned it. She had not gotten lucky. She had not surprised him with some technique he had never seen before. She had simply understood him better than he understood himself. She had found his patterns, his habits, his weaknesses, and she had exploited them perfectly. It was humbling, and also terrifying. 3 days after the match, Rektal called Maya to his office. She arrived exactly on time, standing at attention in front of his desk with the same neutral expression she had worn for most of her time at the academy. "Sit," Rektal said, gesturing to a chair. Maya sat, her posture remaining perfectly straight. She looked calm and ready, like someone waiting for an important meeting but not worried about the outcome. Rektal studied her for a moment before speaking. "You have created quite a situation, Cadet Grant." "Yes, sir," Maya said simply. "The other instructors are divided about what to do with you. Some want you promoted immediately to advanced classes. Others want you reprimanded for dishonesty. A few want you transferred to special operations training." "I understand, sir. What do you want?" Rektal asked. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking about her answer. "I want to continue learning, sir. I want to become the best soldier I can be. I want to help defend the coalition against whatever threats we face." "Noble goals," Rektal said, "but that does not answer my question. What do you want for yourself? Not for the coalition, not for humanity. For Maya Grant." Maya's neutral expression flickered slightly. It was the first time Rektal had seen her look uncertain since she arrived at the academy. "I want to be ready, sir," she said finally. "My whole life I have trained to survive dangerous situations. On Earth, I was a fighter and a security contractor. I saw combat. I saw people die. I learned that being ready, being prepared, being underestimated, those things kept you alive." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "When Earth joined the coalition, I learned about all the different species out here. All the different threats. Pirates, hostile governments, unknown dangers in unexplored space. I realized that everything I had learned on Earth was not enough. I needed to learn from other species. I needed to understand how they fought, how they thought, how they could be beaten." "So you came to the academy to learn," Rektal said. "Yes, sir. And I learned that the best way to learn is to watch and listen. Not to announce yourself as dangerous, but to blend in, to be underestimated, to see how people act when they do not think you are a threat." Rektal nodded slowly. "You manipulated the entire academy for 7 weeks." "Yes, sir. You made me and my fellow instructors waste time teaching you things you already knew. Some things I already knew, sir. But not everything. I learned a lot from watching you teach others. I learned different perspectives and different techniques. I learned how other species approach combat. That knowledge was valuable. You used your fellow cadets as test subjects, observing them without their knowledge or consent." "Yes, sir." Rektal leaned back in his chair. He appreciated that Maya was not making excuses or trying to justify her actions. She understood what she had done and was willing to accept responsibility for it. "In a military context," Rektal said slowly, "what you did could be called intelligence gathering. You identified a target, gathered information, and executed a plan. These are valuable skills for certain types of soldiers." "Yes, sir. But in an academy context, what you did was dishonest. You deceived your instructors and your fellow students. You wasted resources. You damaged trust, yes, sir. I understand. So the question is, Rektal continued, are you a soldier who used intelligence-gathering techniques in an inappropriate setting? Or are you a dishonest person who manipulates others for personal gain? Maya met his eyes directly. I am a soldier, sir. I used the wrong approach in the wrong place. I treated the academy like a combat situation when it was actually a learning environment. I should have been honest from the beginning. I apologize. Rektal studied her face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. He saw none. She seemed genuinely regretful about causing problems, even if she did not regret the outcome. I am moving you to the advanced combat track, Rektal said. You will train with second and third year students who are closer to your actual skill level. You will also be assigned additional studies in tactics, strategy, and leadership. Thank you. Sir? However, Rektal continued, his voice becoming more stern, you will also be required to meet with the academy counselor twice a week. Not as punishment, but because someone with your mindset needs guidance about when strategic thinking is appropriate and when it is not. I understand, sir. And one more thing, Rektal said. You will assist me in teaching basic combat classes. The other students are afraid of you now. They see you as some kind of unstoppable warrior. You will help me show them that you are just a person who trained hard and thought strategically. You will help normalize your abilities so other students can learn from your example without being intimidated. Maya looked surprised for the first time since entering the office. Sir, I am not sure I would be a good teacher. Neither was I when I started, Rektal said. But teaching forces you to understand your own knowledge more deeply. It will be good for you, and it will be good for the other students to work with you regularly. Yes, sir, I will do my best. Rektal stood and Maya stood with him. He extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement and respect. Maya shook it, her grip firm and confident. You are a remarkable person, Cadet Grant, Rektal said. You have skills and qualities that will serve the coalition well. But you are also young and still learning. Do not let one victory make you overconfident. There is always someone better, always something new to learn. I know, sir, Maya said. That is why I came here. After Maya left, Rektal sat alone in his office and thought about the future. The coalition had existed for over 1,000 years. It had faced countless threats and overcome them all through cooperation and shared strength. Every member species brought unique abilities to the alliance. The Krenth brought physical power. The Vexari brought speed. The Zenthari brought strategic thinking. The Chithra brought technological innovation. Each species had its role. Now humans had joined, and Rektal was beginning to understand what they would bring. Not just physical endurance or adaptability, though those were impressive. What humans brought was a mindset, a way of thinking about problems that was uniquely their own. Humans were patient predators who could wait weeks or months for the right moment. They were adaptable survivors who could learn from anyone and integrate knowledge from multiple sources. They were strategic thinkers who understood that information was a weapon as powerful as any gun or blade. And perhaps most importantly, humans understood that sometimes the best way to win was to be underestimated. Maya Grant was just one person, but if she was representative of what humanity could produce, then the coalition had gained something incredibly valuable and incredibly dangerous. Rektal pulled up his datapad and began writing a report for the Academy administration. He recommended that the curriculum be updated to include more emphasis on strategic deception and information warfare. The final week before evaluations felt longer than all the previous weeks combined. The entire academy seemed to buzz with energy and nervous anticipation. Students trained harder. They studied their notes more carefully. They talked constantly about strategies and techniques. Word had spread beyond the combat training class. Other cadets heard about Maya Grant, the silent human who had supposedly been preparing for weeks to challenge Commander Rektal. Some thought she was crazy. Others wondered if humans had some secret fighting ability that nobody knew about yet. A few started making bets on how long she would last before Rektal defeated her. The betting started small but grew quickly. Most bets gave Maya less than 30 seconds. A few generous ones gave her a full minute. Only one student, a Vexari named Kira who had noticed how carefully Maya observed everything, bet that Maya would last the full 3 minutes. Jake and Chris tried to talk to Maya about the upcoming evaluation. They were worried about her. They thought maybe she did not understand how good Rektal was. They wanted to make sure she knew that it was okay to lose, that nobody expected her to actually win. Maya listened to them talk but said nothing. She had returned to her silence after those 2 brief sentences in class. She just nodded occasionally to show she was listening, then went back to whatever she was doing. Her routine did not change during that final week. She did not train extra hours. She did not study late into the night. She did not seem nervous or stressed. She simply continued exactly as she had been, attending classes, completing assignments, and maintaining her silence. The only difference was that now sometimes, Frektal would catch her watching him with something that looked like anticipation, like a person waiting for an exciting event they had been looking forward to for a long time. Frektal spent his free time during that week thinking about Maya and about humans in general. He accessed more files from the database. He read reports from coalition observers who had visited Earth. He watched videos of human combat sports and human military training. The more he learned, the more concerned he became. Humans were persistence predators, yes, but they were also incredibly adaptable. They could survive in almost any environment. They lived in frozen wastelands near the poles and burning deserts near the equator. They lived on mountains so high that the air barely had enough oxygen. They lived in valleys so deep that the sun barely reached them. They adapted to everything. That adaptability extended to combat. Humans had developed hundreds of different fighting styles over their history. Each culture had its own methods. Each region had its own techniques. And humans learned from each other constantly, combining styles and creating new ones. The videos Rektal watched showed human fighters moving with speed and power that seemed impossible for their size. They showed humans taking hits that should have knocked them unconscious and continuing to fight. They showed humans using creativity and unpredictability in ways that would confuse opponents trained in more structured styles. Most disturbing were the videos of human endurance competitions. Events where humans ran for hundreds of miles without stopping, where they pushed their bodies to the absolute limit and then somehow found a way to keep going, where they seemed to enter a mental state that allowed them to ignore pain and exhaustion completely. If Maya Grant could enter that state during their fight, if she could push through pain and keep coming no matter what he did to her, then she might actually be dangerous. Frektal had 40 years of experience. He had trained thousands of students. He had fought in real combat situations against enemies who wanted to kill him. He was confident in his abilities, but he was no longer certain he would defeat Maya easily. The day of evaluations arrived. The combat training hall was packed with spectators. Cadets from other classes had come to watch. Some instructors had shown up, curious about the human who thought she could challenge Rektal. Even a few maintenance workers had found reasons to be in the area. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Rektal had the class warm up with stretches and basic exercises. He wanted them loose and ready. Then he called them to gather around the center mat. "The rules are simple," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. 3-minute matches. Full contact but controlled. No strikes meant to cause permanent injury. No weapons. The match ends when time expires, when someone submits, or when I decide it is unsafe to continue. Understood? The students acknowledged with various sounds and gestures depending on their species. "Cadet Grant," Rektal called. "Center mat." The crowd of students parted as Maya walked forward. She had removed her uniform jacket and wore only the black training clothes that all cadets used for combat practice. She was small compared to most species in the coalition, maybe 5.5 feet tall. She had a lean, athletic build that suggested speed and flexibility, rather than raw strength. She looked completely calm as she stepped onto the mat. Her face showed no fear, no nervousness, no excitement, just calm focus. She looked at Rektal, nodded once with respect, then settled into a ready stance. Rektal studied her positioning carefully. Her stance was not purely human. It was not purely Xanthari. It was not any single style they had studied in class. Instead, it was a hybrid that took elements from multiple approaches. Her weight was distributed in a way that would let her move quickly in any direction. Her hands were up but relaxed, ready to strike or defend without committing to either. She had created her own stance, one specifically designed for fighting him. "Begin," announced the assistant instructor who was keeping time. Neither fighter moved for the first 30 seconds. They circled each other slowly, maintaining distance, both waiting for the other to commit first. It was a test of patience and discipline, a battle of who would make the first mistake. The watching students grew restless. Some began to whisper. This was not the explosive action they had expected. This was slow and tense and uncomfortable to watch. But Rektal understood what was happening. Maya was testing him. She wanted to see if he would become impatient and aggressive. She wanted him to attack first so she could analyze his approach in real time before committing herself. He decided to give her what she wanted. Rektal lunged forward with a straight punch aimed at her center mass. It was a probing attack, designed to see how she would react. Maya slipped to the side with minimal movement, avoiding the strike by the smallest margin necessary. She did not counterattack. She just reset to her stance and continued circling. Rektal attacked again, this time with a low kick aimed at her lead leg. Maya checked it with her shin, absorbing the impact without giving ground, then immediately moved back to her original distance. 90 seconds remained. Rektal increased the pressure. He launched a combination of strikes that forced Maya to defend continuously. She blocked and evaded with impressive skill. Her defensive technique was nearly perfect, but she still was not attacking. She was not trying to score points or create opportunities. She was letting him tire himself out. The realization hit Rektal with sudden clarity. This was her strategy. Humans were endurance predators. They did not win by being strongest or fastest. They won by outlasting their opponents. She was going to make him expend energy while she conserved hers. She was waiting for him to slow down, to make a mistake, to create an opening. 1 minute remained. Rektal changed his approach. He slowed his attack rate and focused on maintaining strong defense. If she wanted to play a patient game, he would match her patience. Let her attack for once. 45 seconds. Maya seemed to sense the shift in his strategy. For the first time, she pressed forward. She closed the distance with a quick step and launched a combination of strikes that tested his defense. Her technique was excellent. Her targeting was precise. Rektal blocked and deflected, impressed by her skill but not threatened yet. 30 seconds. The pace increased dramatically. Maya attacked with sudden intensity, forcing Rektal to give ground for the first time. She was fast, faster than he had anticipated. Her strikes were finding their targets with increasing regularity. A punch slipped past his guard and hit his shoulder. A kick connected with his thigh. 20 seconds. Rektal realized with growing concern that she was winning. Not by a large margin, but in the eyes of anyone watching, she was landing more strikes, forcing him backward, controlling the tempo of the fight. In 15 more seconds, the match would end, and she would have accomplished something no first-term cadet had ever done. He could not allow that. Not because of pride, but because students needed to understand the gap between their current skill and true mastery. 10 seconds. Rektal launched a powerful combination, using his superior experience to create an opening in Maya's defense. He saw it clearly. The perfect moment to execute a takedown that would put her on her back and allow him to secure a submission. He committed to the technique. His body moved with the practiced precision of 4 decades of training. His hands reached for her. His weight shifted forward. His center of gravity changed in exactly the way it needed to for the throw to work, and Maya Grant smiled. It was not a big smile. Just a small curve of her lips. But Rektal saw it and understood in that instant that he had made a terrible mistake. Everything happened in less than 3 seconds.